Right, so we've looked at some of the romantics so far. We've looked at Wordsworth, Coleridge, Blake, and Byron. The last two that I want to look at are Shelley and Keats. And I do think Byron, Shelley, and Keats, the second generation, are actually that bit more interesting and probably that bit easier to write a good essay about, because the second generation are self-aware that they know that they're romantics. You've had this earlier generation that have come, and the second generation are often actually looking at their position as romantics and referring to what's gone before, which allows you to again talk about the poetry on a deeper level. How do they see themselves as poets? This PowerPoint that you can see now is on Teams, so it's a Byron and Shelley PowerPoint. I'd recommend that you watch those 3 videos, which will give you a really nice insight into Shelley's life and an understanding of who he was, and some nice contextual points for AO3. And you'll see the activity on the left. I'll give people the first Shelley poem, and actually take the title off. I don't tell them what the poem is called, and I give them the 4 stanzas in a mixed up order and ask them to try and decide what they think the correct order is. I don't give them the title because the title is also the first line, so if they see the title, they have a very good guess as to which the first stanza is. But the reason I do that is because I don't want you to just see structure in terms of enjambment or in terms of rhyme scheme or metre. It's actually also about just the journey from start to end of the poem. So those videos will give you a nice insight into Shelley in the first place, and then those things on the right I think are also important. And before we look at the first poem, I want to just sort of briefly go through them. So Shelley's very much like Blake. Shelley really is the second generation Blake in the way that I think Keats is the second generation Wordsworth. They have a lot of similarities. Shelley, like Blake, is a bit of a visionary, and yet at the same time kind of ahead of his time, to the point where he's seen as a bit of an oddball when he's alive. Shelley's ideas influence Mark. Shelley's a bit of a pre-socialist, really, very interested in the idea that the common man is being exploited. And as with Blake, he believes that one big reason for that is religion. Religion is exploiting the masses. It's what Mark said, religion is the opium of the masses. Blake felt that organised religion was a problem, and Shelley took it a bit further in actually being an atheist and was kicked out of Oxford as a result. As with Blake, Shelley is influenced by Rousseau, who believes that your ideal person basically is a savage or a hermit, somebody who lives outside of society. I said a nice contextual point is in the early 1800s, people with big stately homes could actually almost like rent a hermit to live on their land, because it was seen as a really positive thing in the era of Romanticism. And Rousseau believed that basically, people who lived outside of civilization were less tainted by society, which Shelley believed himself. He was a vegetarian actually, so way ahead of his time. Bit of a pacifist, bit of an idealist. But then the one moment of controversy in his life is that he left his first wife, Harriet. She later drowned. We suspect that she killed herself. And then he runs off, Shelley, with 2 people at once. Mary Shelley, who I believe at the time was 16, she was certainly very young. He runs off to elope, and also Mary Shelley is I think is a cousin who comes with them. So Shelley's really trying to fly in the face of what's seen as decent, in society. They elope and go off with Byron, who's also been kicked out because of his private life, and that's where on this kind of holiday where they end up writing, I say holiday/exile, where actually Mary Shelley ends up writing Frankenstein. So the first poem I want to look at by Shelley is The Cold Earth Slept Below, okay, which you should see now. So it's a pretty short poem, but you get a theme in this that you get an awful lot in Shelley, which is that he revisits a lot of the earlier romantic images, but Shelley sees them often as kind of empty or tainted or destroyed. So whereas Wordsworth sees nature as invigorating him and bringing him back to life, Shelley's almost the opposite. What's going on in his own head prevents him from kind of experiencing or enjoying the nature in the way that he likes, and this is a great example of this. So this is about Harriet's death. He's dealing with that. So he's talking here in this poem to Harriet, basically to Harriet's sort of dead body, and we get a load of romantic images. But as in the way that Byron parodies them, Shelley's almost taking them and removing the general romantic traditions from them. He's actually making them empty to show that what's going on in his head means that the nature can't be appreciated. So we get the first stanza. The cold earth slept below, above the cold sky shone, and all around with the chilling sound from caves of ice and fields of snow, the breath of night like death did flow beneath the sinking moon. Okay, now it's in terms of structure, in terms of metre and in terms of rhyme scheme, Shelley is not as consistent as some of the other romantics. We looked at how Byron very much enjoys the iambic metre. Byron generally likes tetrameter. Byron generally likes AB rhyme scheme. Shelley's rhyme scheme actually varies within this poem. So there is one, there is this rhyme scheme going through the poem, but it's a little bit looser. Same as the third and fourth lines tend to be a little bit shorter in each stanza. But again, it's maybe not as consistent as some of the other poems. So this opening stanza is a classic romantic image, isn't it? You've got the moon, you've got the ice, the fields of snow, the breath of night, the idea that Wordsworth gets, the idea that the night itself is alive. All those things are there, and yet he doesn't feel. Compare this to lines written in early spring. It doesn't feel romantic-y, does it? It's full of nature, and yet the earth is cold. It's sleeping. The sky is cold. So actually already what we get is these romantic images, but stripped away of the idea of the sober pleasure that Wordsworth sort of says they give to him. To Shelley, this seems cold and empty and almost meaningless. Notice all around with a chilling sound, the breath of night like death did flow. So he's surrounded by it, the pantheism is there, the sense of nature being all around, but the sound to him is chilling, because actually the night is breathing, he sees that, but Harriet is not. So it's the pantheism is no comfort to him. The romantic imagery is no comfort because of what's happening in his own life. So yes, we get the Gothic images of the eyes, the fields of snow, these great things that inspire awe and wonder. But again, they're caves, they're empty. The moon is sinking. So everything here is in decline. It's a classic romantic image, but Shelley's almost stripped away everything that makes it feel romantic. Second stanza carries on. The wintry hedge was black, the green grass was not seen, the birds did rest on the bare thorn's breast, whose roots beside the pathway track had bound their folds o'er many a crack, which the frost had made between. And it's more of the same, really, wasn't it? The hedge, we get hedges in Tint and Abbey, but here they're wintry and they're black because of the night. The green grass was not seen, and there's a self-awareness here with Shelley, because clearly that the hedge isn't black itself, or if it is, it will be green again if it's winter. He acknowledges that the green grass is there. He's just saying it's not seen. The wintry hedge was black because of the night. So it's almost like he's aware that his own way of seeing it, the spectrum of his own vision, is actually colouring all of these things. He's aware that pantheism is there, and this isn't how he should be behaving as a romantic, but it's still there. The thorn is his breast. The birds are there. In lines written in early spring, we have the birds hopping around. Shelley's got them, but what they're doing, they're resting on the bare thorn's breast. This image of Mother Nature, this image of nature as this motherly, maternal figure with the breast. It's bare, it's empty, it's meaningless. The roots are there. What they're doing, they're going over the cracks which the frost had made between. So again, it's a poem about emptiness. The frost is showing the emptiness here. Normally, and we'll see it in Keats, in poems like To Autumn, in Wordsworth, lines written in early spring, nature is about fullness, and yet Shelley here makes it actually about emptiness. And then the third stanza, there's a bit of a tonal shift here. You could argue it's a volta, so where the tone shifts halfway through the poem. Maybe it's not as extreme as that, but notice thine, he's addressing somebody now, okay? So he's addressing Harriet, basically. He's addressing Harriet's body. Thine eyes glowed in the glare. So again, now we get this classic kind of romantic image of a woman and a beautiful woman with the glowing eyes, but they're glowing in the glare because the eyes are open because she's dead, of the moon's dying light being the second line to sort of show that. So this should be a romantic image, the moonlight, the eyes glowing, and yet it's empty. As a fenfire's beam on a sluggish stream gleams dimly, so the moon shone there, and it yellowed the strings of thy tangled hair that shook in the wind of night. So the yellow hair, again, classic image of feminine beauty, but it's yellowing in the sense of, it's yellowed in the sense of being decayed. The moon is only gleaming dimly. The hair has become tangled, so the yellow is actually a sign of decay rather than of beauty. The moon is shining there, but it's almost this idea that nature doesn't care, the world's going on, and yet Harriet's dead, and Shelley feels that his world is sort of emptied, and that's and that's what we get throughout an awful lot of his poetry. The stream is there, but it's sluggish. So again, nothing is really kind of moving in the way that it should be. It's perhaps a little bit tenuous to say, the form and structure are also sluggish. Because you're in danger then of saying, it flows, or it's not got a structure. It has, but there is clearly that slipping. Compare it to Byron, where everything is very tightly structured. The meter and the rhyme scheme is consistent. We don't get that here. So the last bit, the moon made thy lips pale, beloved. So he actually addresses her here as beloved. The wind made thy bosom chill. So now we get to it, don't we? The moon and the wind, these classic romantic imageries. Why is he seeing them in such a negative light? Because they to him are making Harriet pale and making her cold. You know, they are emphasising what she is not. She is not living. They are almost exaggerating that. The night did shed on thy dear head, its frozen dew, and thou didst lie where the bitter breath of the naked sky might visit thee at will. You could argue there's some sort of sense of comfort here. You know, the shed implies, shedding tears. In fact, I said tear by accident. But notice, what is it really shedding? It's frozen dew, it's ice, it's more coldness, it's more emptiness. So there's an irony there, I guess, where Shelley is shedding tears, but the nature is almost carrying on. And actually, at the end, thou didst lie where the bitter breath of the naked sky might visit thee at will. The breath from the start of the poem now becomes bitter, and this is why I look at this poem, stanza by stanza, and look at different orders, because now the breath has become bitter. So all these classic romantic images to Shelley have become bitter, because to him the sky is naked, it's caves, it's empty, it's cold, because all of that breath, all of that pantheism is visiting Harriet in the sense that she's exposed to it. It's not reviving her in the way that it revives Wordsworth. She can't be revived. So all these things that visit Wordsworth and revive him are almost a cruel joke to Shelley, because they're not reviving Harriet and they're exaggerating what he doesn't have. So that's how I see this one. It's kind of in keeping, I think, with the other three Shelley poems. So, use this, annotate it, think about what Shelley's saying, and then we'll look at the next three.